So before I get started on the demonstration of Amber4 Ultra, I wanted to address something that was posted over on Gearspace. Because I am a member of the Acustica Audio Street Team, I took offense to this post. The AA Street Team, which AA announced some long time ago, for example, did nothing to change that. It's just a bunch of people on a list that do nothing in regards of helping to communicate AA products to people by creating presentation videos on YouTube or such. They are a joke. But anyway, look, when I filed my application to be a part of the Acustica Audio Street Team, I did it with the understanding that I had the freedom to make videos about the new products as I personally saw fit. Acustica don't ask me to do anything that I don't want to do. Now, they have requested certain things, like they wanted me to get a picture with Cherry. They sent Cherry ahead of time. That's about the only one that really comes to mind. They usually just say, hey, we have a new product that's out. We want you to check it out. And if you look at the history of the Real Home Recording channel, I don't always release videos about Acustica Audio's new products. Not because I don't want to, I just don't always have the time, or maybe it doesn't pique my interest enough. But they still send me new product announcements and send me not for resale licenses. Amber is one I installed on day one, and I'm glad I did because I actually ended up liking it compared to the original version that I reviewed. Oh goodness, I think back in 2014, maybe 2015. You know, it's been that long of a time since I reviewed the original one, and I wasn't really a huge fan of the original one. It kind of sounded boring to me, and I just didn't see a reason to use it because it just had a very digital sound to it. This one, however, I think is worth checking out because, you know, for a long time, I haven't really been happy with my vocal equalizers, and I think this one may be it. Unofficially, Amber is sampled from Avalon hardware. I believe this is the AD2055 for the equalizer, and then for the compressor, it is the AD2044 optical compressor. Like I said, the original ones that they had out for Amber just sounded very digital, very clinical. And this one, I believe, it's got something to it that I really like. Speaking of which, I'm actually going to change the size. If you want me to clarify the way this plugin works, I'll do it right now. So first of all, all the new Acustica Audio plugins have a preset menu at the top. It's a little hard to read for my old eyes, but load, save, AB, so you can compare settings. You can do a copy from A to B. Over here, there's an options screen, which they really haven't done anything with yet. And so the way you resize the plugin, you click this, the resize drop-down menu. You choose the different size. By default, it should be on 1x. So I'll do 1.5x. And then you actually have to close the plugin. You only have to do this one time, all right? I'll find Amber Ultra again. And there we go. It's resized. It is not designed properly for a 1080p display, I believe. I believe 1.5x is ideal for 1440p displays. And then 2x size is for Ultra HD 4K monitors. But the cool thing is, important controls are not dropped below this area. If I expand this some more, you can see that there's really not anything down there, which is good because it means that I can technically use the plugin like this. I just have to be very careful to remember that I'm not able to see the entire GUI. So if something is important down there, then I can't use it like this. But for mobile screen purposes, I'm going to use this plugin right now and explain the rest of it. First of all, presets. Yes, there are a few presets that are built in. You can see the list right here. On this part, we have our low frequency band. You can either choose it, you can either pick a shelf or peaking band. You can enable the band or disable it. By default, it is enabled. And then if you look right here, if you click this number right here next to LF, you can actually type the number in. So let's just do 300. And interestingly enough, you would think 300 would go right where the number is, but no. What they've done with Amber and what they're going to continue to do is if you choose a specific frequency, if you're looking at that number that's right there, it's actually going to be the accurate digital number, not the analog number that's on the hardware. Now, they still left that on there if you're used to using the hardware. So 480 hertz is actually 727 hertz, digitally speaking. Now, interestingly enough, over here on the upper right corner is our mode switch. And we can choose between hyper EQ, eco mode, and then we can also do hyper EQ digital and digital 2x. Now, the differences between those four, hyper is closer to hardware sound. The economy mode, that's what eco stands for, uses less CPU and is more digitally accurate. And then hyper EQ digital and digital 2x, those use more CPU, but they are more accurate. And it just depends on which flavor you're after. I personally like to leave it on the default. I want these to sound more like hardware, so I leave it on that mode. And then if you change it, it updates where it says mode, as you can see. And 2x is talking about oversampling. So if you're at either 44.1 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz sampling rate, then 2x is definitely recommended. Now, the gain knob, going back to the low frequency band. If you change this, you can double click on the knob and go accurate down to the numbers. Double click. Let's try 6. Let's try 7. And the neat thing about Ultra is they added a frequency graph that updates as you change the frequency and the gain. And also, obviously, the shelf versus peak knob. It gives you a graphic display of what you're doing. Pretty neat stuff. And control clicking resets these knobs to the default setting. Now, we also have LMF, which stands for low mid frequency or low mid filter. And then HMF is high mid frequency, high mid filter. Next to that, we actually have a button which allows us to multiply the frequency by 10. So if I click on it, those numbers update. And we can have a lot more options for frequencies, because actually when I first started using this, I was like, oh no, I want to use this on so-and-so frequency. I can't do that, but oh no, I can. 10x allows that. So again, as I'm adjusting this, the frequency graph updates just to give us a visual display of what's going on. And audio, if you have it going, this little amber light lights up. It looks like an eyeball. This, I believe, is an input trim. I didn't use this when I was testing out the plugin, but essentially what this allows us to do is if we have the preamp enabled down here, you click that button, it makes it black, and if we want to, we can oversample it up to 8x. And that basically gives us better quality, less anti-aliasing, or really no anti-aliasing at the higher setting of 8x. And we can drive the preamp or the saturation of this tube equalizer using the input trim. And input trim means that as you bring the gain up, it lowers the output gain automatically. And if you lower the input, it will increase the gain so that you just get the characteristic of the preamp and you don't have to worry about the volume level being drastically different. Very cool feature. And the output, this knob is a pure output gain knob after the equalizer. And I use this when I was using this on the actual tracks, because I know I get a lot of complaints that I use plugins and I don't match my gain from the original signal. So as you can see, I use the output knob right there and to match the original input signal by ear and by looking at the meter. So back to the big GUI. I wanted to show you guys how that worked with the AV copy. So I'm going to adjust these controls a little bit more. And okay, so at this point, press the copy button. Or actually, I should just be able to click this, right? And then it copies it. Yep, there we go. It copied it. And then if I do this, and then I click A, see how it changes the settings? It maintains the settings to what I already had before. And then if I click this button, it should update A. Yep. And then if I want to, I can save this as a preset. And what should I call this? Amber Ultra EQ. I don't know, mess around. And then if I got rid of that, open another instance up, I can now load that old preset. Now, I don't think it'll be updated under this presets menu, no, because these are the built-in presets. I actually have to hit load and then double click or single click and hit open the preset that I just saved. And then there is everything that I just did with it. And if I go to B, what happens? Oh, it saves that. Wait, no, it didn't save that. Good. It resets everything. So now I think if I hit copy, go to B, then click paste. There we go. There's my settings. So there's two different ways to do the same thing. And we also have down here, we can do a mid-side option. So all the way left is just, if we have a stereo signal, just affecting the mono elements of the signal. And all the way to the right, we are just affecting what's on the side. And then the options in between are going to be in between, you know, again, affecting the way the signal is processed between mid and side. Now over here is our pan knob. Now that has nothing to do with the processing. It's just the panning. I don't know what they implemented for this particular pan section, but it's a more hardware style panning. Speaking of which, bypass button is right here, the internal bypass. Now with Reaper, you could either uncheck it over here, but the ideal way to do it is within the plugin itself. That's how you do it. And then we have our different listening modes. You can listen in mono, or I'm sorry, mid, also mono, side, and then delta lets us hear the difference between the unprocessed and processed signal. Typically, you're going to keep it on the stereo mode, though, which is LR. And then finally over here is our high frequency band, or our high filter. There is no high pass filter or low pass filter on this plugin, unfortunately. But, you know, you can choose different frequencies. And again, pay attention to the number up here. It's the more accurate number. The knob numbers are there as a hardware reference. There you go. Let me disable these so you can see what I'm doing with that. So that's a very wide boost. Oh, I forgot to mention the width knob. So this is the bandwidth knob for the two mid filters. And default setting is at 50% or 50. I don't know about percentage, but all the way to the left is narrower. So that would be a higher Q if you're used to using a hardware unit. A higher Q is actually a lower number. And then the higher number, it's wider. So just think of this knob as the greater the width, the greater the number. The smaller the width, the smaller the number. See how it's getting wider? So I like having this as a graphical reference. It really, really helps. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. The Ultra button, which I don't know why they don't have it over here, but the Ultra button, if you're going to use the input trim up here to really saturate the preamp, you want to make sure that's enabled because that allows for a more accurate saturation. Otherwise, keep it off because it uses less CPU. But, oh my goodness. Yeah, there's a lot of options. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of options on this, but for me, this is one of the more simpler ones to use.